I love social media as a pull for patients to my practice, almost like as a different lead source. But what I find is that if you can't get them in a day or two, or even the same day, they're no-showing. I don't think it's a function of how we're taking the call, what we're doing. It's really more of how long they have to wait to get in.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Orthopreneurs Podcast. Today, I always say we have a special guest, but today we have the greatest guest by name that we've ever had on the podcast. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Kriger.
Hi, guys. How are you? This is the real Dr. Kriger.
Okay, are we going to do this again? Is this how we're going to start with? We both know. So just some backstory. This is Dr. Maryann Kriger, a friend and colleague, founder of Orthazone. She's Bonita Springs, Florida. Is that where you are? Yeah, she's Bonita Springs, Florida. And I'll just say, since the day we met, she's part of our Orthopreneurs RD group, our private mastermind. And since the day we met, we run into each other probably 2 to 4 times a year at one of our private meetings. Yeah. And the first thing we always greet each other is that, I'm the original Dr. Kriger. And she's like, no.
I'm the original Dr. Kriger. That's right.
Right. And so the joke has been that I would love, and I let her have the original, even though I'm 10 years older, and, I'll let her have the original. But the original Dr. Kriger is really my dad. Okay. He was on one of the podcasts. He's the original Dr. Kriger. But the funny thing is, I spell it K-R-I-E and she spells it K-R-I. So I said, we should just open a practice together and call it Kriger and Kriger because it's spelled differently. And everybody will think that there's a typo in the sign. And that alone would make it worthwhile to practice with you. But I'm just thrilled to have you here today. So thank you for agreeing to do this, Maryann. There's so many great things to talk about. And I'm going to want to hear about your story. I want to hear about your practice. I know you a bit, obviously, but I really am excited about jumping into Orthazone later on and talking a little bit about that, because I think it's one of the better kept secrets in orthodontics that, quite frankly, many people may not have ever heard of it, or if they did, they don't really know what it's about. Making it clear right now to everybody at the outset, I have no financial interest whatsoever in Orthazone, but I am an advocate of all things Maryann Kriger. And so let's start with your story. If you don't mind taking a minute just to tell people, how did you end up in ortho? How did you end up where you are today? I always love that part of the story.
Yeah, I grew up in New York. I went to school there and knew that New York was just not for me. I just never felt like a New Yorker. I love the hustle and bustle. I love the intensity, but part of me just didn't want to be there. So I knew I wanted to leave, and Florida was really a great choice for me because I love the beach. I love the weather. And so I knew I was going to transition. And I came to Florida and I knew I wanted to have a practice on my own. So I opened up a practice, and my boyfriend at the time was still in New York. And literally the day that I moved down to Florida, he proposed. And
my God. Yeah. Oh my God. Just tell me he proposed after you said you were moving.
He did propose after I said I was moving. So I think I may have put a little timeline push on that. But
yeah, that's incredible. The timing of that. You say you're leaving and he proposes. How odd, right?
Just imagine that. Yeah, imagine that. But no, it was wonderful. And I kind of said, you know what? You kind of finish off. He's an oral maxillofacial cosmetic surgeon. And I said, you finish off what you need to finish. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And so moved down to Florida. And a year later, he moved down. And then we actually got married in Florida. And the day after, so there may be a day after trend with me and Greg, he said, I kind of want to do cosmetic surgery. I want to apply to a program. And I'm like, okay, dude, we just got married. And you're telling me this right here and now. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, he got accepted into a fellowship in Gainesville, and he was off to do a cosmetics facial fellowship. And, we were married and he's away, and here we are away again. And I kind of threw myself into figuring out what I wanted to do. And I worked for an orthodontist. He was wonderful, and decided to open up practices. So I opened up a practice, and then he came down and started up his own. And then we said, okay, well, let's have babies. And it didn't quite happen as we planned. It took us forever to
It
have
never
babies.
happens as planned.
Yeah,
Never.
it doesn't. But I was able to. Well, we did IVF. So if anyone has any questions on IVF, I'm definitely an expert on that.
How many kids do you have, and how old are they?
Yeah, so we have three babies. So they're not babies anymore, but twin boys that are 9 and a girl who is 10. So they are an awesome age. They are phenomenal, and we're really every day feel super blessed to have gone through that hardship to realize the beauty of having a family. So
Yeah.
having a family, having 3 offices, Greg having a practice that does oral maxillofacial and cosmetic surgery, and him having 3 offices, and me helping him a little bit there as well. And
Yeah.
Orthazone's been really a fun ride. So I've been enjoying it, really from the beginning.
Yeah, you're a productive woman. You're doing a lot of stuff. I don't mean productive as in reproductive. I didn't mean it that way. You're laughing, and I'm like, as I said, I'm like, uh-oh, I didn't mean reproductive. Although you've proven that. So, you've got 3 offices.
Yeah.
You've got Orthazone. You got 3 kids. So let's go back a little bit, because one question you didn't answer is, what made you become an orthodontist?
Well, I knew I wanted to do something in medicine. I just didn't know what. And the more I explored it, I don't like hospitals. So a hospital setting wasn't really for me. And I wanted to be more hands-on with my patients. And I was actually an au pair in New York City. I was actually an au pair in Austria as well. But in this kind of
Wow.
live-in nanny au pair type of scenario, it was Randy Quaid's daughter.
Oh
And
my
she would go to
gosh.
the orthodontist, and Moskowitz, who
Yeah.
to this day, boasts that he harbored my future career as an orthodontist, would tell me, "What are you doing? You got to become an orthodontist." So there you go. So I got to say, he was pivotal in my introduction to orthodontics. But I always said, I'm going to start off with dentistry, and if I want to progress to orthodontics, I will. And if it's something that I don't want to do, I won't do. But I love every aspect of it. The fact that we can create a self-esteem, change a child's self-esteem and change how somebody looks at themselves. And I love the independent business model. So I think it's
Yeah.
great.
You are definitely an independent businesswoman. There's no question about that.
I love it.
Anybody who knows you really, we've had some conversations,
Yeah.
and you eat, breathe, drink business. You did say something really interesting there that I don't think I've ever heard an orthodontist ever say. I actually hear orthodontists say 180 degrees to what you said. And what you said was, I was going to start off as a dentist and then figure out about ortho. The overwhelming majority of folks I've had on the show or people I speak to say, not only did I know I was going to be an orthodontist, or I figured out I was going to be an orthodontist, but if I had to be a dentist the rest of my career, I'd kill myself, right? Like I've had that conversation with orthodontists and said, if you had to be a GP, it's more specifically, I say pedo. I said, if you had to be a pedo and not an
Right.
ortho for 1 year, just for 1 year, I'm not talking the rest of your career, how much lump sum payment would you need to be a pediatric dentist for 1 year? You know where the number begins with most people? What would be your number, Maryann? 1 year. 1 year as a pediatric dentist.
Maybe going in, I probably wouldn't know the difference, but now there's no way. I
No, that's
mean,
why I say
yeah,
the number begins for most somewhere between $1.5 million and $2 million. Like, it's really funny. So when you said I started as a dentist, knowing, I go there, that's what I tell every person, every high schooler who interns with me. They come in, or the mother, invariably you have an 8-year-old kid in the chair, and the mother looks at you all serious, or the father, and says, she wants to be an orthodontist. And you try not to laugh because she's 8 years old and she's got another 35 years of education ahead of her. But when I get the high schoolers or college students who come and intern with me for the day, and they say, I want to be an orthodontist, I always make it clear to them. They say, look, if you're going to be an orthodontist, you better be top of your class, because if you're not, you better be at peace with the idea that you might be a dentist
right.
for the rest of your life and not an orthodontist. And I think it's unusual to see people take the path you took. And so
I
kudos.
mean, I love general dentistry. I I just love the cosmetic factor of it and the rehabilitation factor of it. And I apply those principles to ortho, but oh my God, I'd much rather be doing orthodontics. So I feel very, very fortunate. So.
Yeah, I love ortho too.
Yeah.
But I will admit, there are a lot of times during the day that I see like a giant amalgam on like a six. And I'm like, oh, I just wish I can get them numb and prep that. Pop a rubber. What I'm about to say is going to make people cringe. I can put knitting needles in their ears. But I'm just saying, nothing would make me happier than to get somebody numb. Right? I lost all the orthos right
Don't
there.
say rubber dam.
Yeah, I want to give them a block and a long buckle, right? Get them really numb, throw a rubber dam on from 7 to contralateral 1, put some wedges between the lower 6s, take out the old amalgam, put some Gluma in there, build it up, and then prep it. I'm like, oh, I so want to do that. I do miss that a lot. And if it weren't for Stuart Frost, shout out to Stu, I was watching him in his office one day. You know, when he finishes a case, as we're all aware, were you at that course, the RD course?
No, I didn't make it that day. Yeah. I heard it was excellent though.
Oh, well, the highlight was watching, Akash and Doug get into the ice bath in the back of Stuart's house. But that's another conversation for another time. But I watch when he finishes cases, and I recommend to everybody out there listening, if you haven't taken one of the Frost Smile courses, Frost Smile Academy, you should sign up for one. I've taken his finishing, his bracket placement. Him and Trevor are doing an amazing job. But when they finish cases, right, when not like one or two, but every case, they pick up the laser, they do soft tissue recontouring. They pick up the burr, and they do hard tissue recontouring. They pick up composite if necessary and bond. And I watched Stuart do it, and he was a general dentist, I think, for like 10 years maybe. On his podcast, I don't think he got into ortho at first. And I think he practiced with his dad as a general dentist, just like I did. And so I was watching him, and I was like, man, you're awesome, Stu. Like, what you're doing here is amazing. And he just looked at me and goes, why aren't you doing that, Glenn? You were a restorative dentist for 20 years. Like, you should be real. And he just sort of gave me the permission to go back and do the stuff I love doing, which is, okay, cover your ears, full mouth occlusal equilibration. Like, to me, I love doing that, right? I love bonding incisal edges when there's like a roughness, and rather than shave down a tooth, just taking out some composite. So, I think we're kindred spirits in that respect, is that, finishing it using cosmetics is huge. On that note, do you and your husband do a lot of cases together? Do you find that there's crossover between people who want ortho and people who want cosmetic surgery?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel really comfortable talking about it because I've seen like a lot of his results, and I'm like actually obsessed with his Instagram. He has like before and after videos. But yeah, I think it's an easy conversation. Like if somebody needs a chin or somebody really is just deficient in the mandible, I actually had a patient yesterday that really could get a gorgeous facelift simply by, bringing that mandible forward and getting the tightening that advancement would provide. So just having that knowledge and having him and seeing his work makes it much easier for me to recommend treatments like that. He also has like an esthetician. And so we're actually talking about doing some cross marketing, and I'm helping his office and I'm consulting his office. I'll pick up a couple consulting projects here and there. And he begged me for to put him on my schedule, and I did. And so I said, you've got an esthetician, and so why not have her come on Thursdays, for example, in my office, sit there, give some presentations, hand out some flyers, and see if she can build up her schedule for the next day. People are very much into quick decisions and quick action, right? They don't want to wait. If they decide they want a facial, they don't want to be booked for 3 weeks out. They want something like the next day or the same day if they could. And so we're starting to do some cross marketing in that regard. And I think that that's really fun. It's kind of nice to see patients cross that line between orthodontics and cosmetics.
Yeah. And, you mentioned something really important there. I think the overwhelming majority of orthodontists I know, I'd be hard pressed. I can think of one, but I'd be hard pressed to find a lot of orthodontists who are not doing same day starts, right?
Right.
I don't know about you, but when I came out of school, which wasn't that long ago, it was almost a decade ago. When I came out of school, I would say a very large percentage of the orthodontists I knew would have a patient come in, take records, right? Have them back at a review of findings appointment. And there were even some that wouldn't start it that day, right? Because
Right.
there weren't any scanners. So you weren't scanning. And I say aligner therapy was nowhere near as pervasive as it is today. So you weren't really taking a lot of impressions that day. You had to
Right.
put braces on. And so I think nowadays that same day start mentality is a function of exactly what you just said. And I would also say to everybody out there that this I want to get it now. I don't know why it is, because it's not the Gen Zs you're treating. It's mostly millennials at this point,
Mhm.
some Gen Xers. And their nature is typically not now, 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 now. Most are pretty thoughtful, but it's a good underscore of why you should not be letting patients wait 3 or 4 weeks to get in for a new patient appointment, right?
Agree.
Like, because
Agree.
it's sad. Would you agree that if in today's patient population, the mom, let's just use a mom as an example. She's going to ask her PTO or PTA friends, hey, who do you like to go to? And they go, oh, Maryann Kriger. Oh, okay. Gives Maryann a call, can't get in for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
No doubt the next thing she's doing is going back to her friends and go, who else you got? Maryann can't get me in for 2 weeks, right? Do you feel the same way?
I do. I do. And I think our marketing methods have really changed. I love social media as a pull for patients to my practice, almost like as a different lead source. But what I find is that if you can't get them in a day or two, or even the same day, they're no showing. And so, I see on the ortho groups, oh, my patients, the no show rate is dramatic. I
Yeah,
really attest to the fact that, at least in my practice, if we can't get them in quickly, the no-show rate increases. I
I
mean,
agree.
I don't think it's a function of how we're taking the call or what we're doing. It's really more of how long they have to wait to get in. It's a
Yeah,
convenience factor for them.
I agree 100%. And again, I try to get people in quickly, but it's a double-edged sword. It's hard, right? Because at least in my practice, and I don't know about yours, you have 3 practices, right?
Right.
So it's probably different at each practice, but it seems to be like the second you add another column in the TC schedule, all of a sudden you're empty, right? All of a sudden it's like, where did the patients go? Then you go back to a single column and you're booked out for a week or two.
Mhm.
And it's hard to find that. What do you think is better? Do you think it's better to have a column and a half of new patients and have it 85% full, but knowing that you can fit somebody in at any given moment? Or is it better to have one column of patients, having it always full, but people might have to wait 4, 5, 6 days? It's a
Yeah,
tough
I
question,
mean,
right?
it's a really tough question, and actually, I've made some changes in my own practice trying to resolve this. So I actually, in my Fort Myers office, I actually took a clinical area and I converted it into another treatment coordinator area. And the reason why I did that is because that was a records room. And I figured, in my opinion, I really needed more room for consults. I'm not there as often. It's a satellite office. And so the more new patients that I can see immediately, the more, they will convert. And so what we do is we actually have 2 treatment coordinators and then a front desk that's cross trained to do treatment coordinating. So if I need to grab somebody else, then she can kind of pull them, front desk or to the side. It's not ideal, but a lot of patients don't really care where they're given the fees and the information. I think
No.
that's just a misconception. Like, they don't care. They know they want it. They just need to know how much and how to get started. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate the process. So we try to really just go as smooth as we can. We even reduced our new patient chair time from 60 minutes to 45 minutes. And that actually has compensated a little bit for no shows. Now, my TCs may say, oh my God, when they all show up, I want to kill Dr. Krieger. But
Hey,
the
don't
reality
kill
is
me. Not my
that,
fault.
but the reality is, that's where it is. Like, we have to get our patients in. They shouldn't be waiting 5 to 6 days to come in, because again, the no show rate is higher. And if we need to double book and kind of figure it out, with some sort of control, I think it works out best.
Yeah, well said. Great points there. And
Yeah.
and I'm going to create a new rule. You've heard Occam's razor, Hanlon's razor. Like, there's all these razors. I want
Yeah.
Krieger's razor because it's you and
Okay.
me, so it
All
can
right.
apply to both of us. Krieger's razor is 2 things. Number one, orthodontists have a tendency to complicate things more than they need to because they're thinkers.
For sure.
And if if I can think of 8 ways to make this work, then it's got to be better than just doing it. And the second half of Krieger's razor is that orthodontists think that their presence with patients is way more important than the patient does, right? Like those are the two things that if I could get on a soapbox and say, if you have an easier way of doing something, even if it doesn't fit exactly what you want, do it. And the less time you spend with a patient within reason, the more likely you are to get case closure, and your patients will be just as happy because, seeing you every 8 weeks is not as fun to them as seeing you every 12 weeks. And seeing you at the chair for 10 minutes is not as fun as them seeing you for 2 minutes. You agree with that?
Oh, yeah. Actually, to that point, we started realizing, so I see patients Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And Orthazone is like my Monday, Friday. Right. And what I realize is a lot of patients do want to come in for a Monday and Friday appointment. And what we realize is they don't really care if I'm there or not. Nope. They really don't care. Like, my treatment coordinator will come in, they'll take photos, they'll take records. They'll send me a text shot of what it looks like. I will diagnose it. I'm like, hey, I'm available. I can do a FaceTime. And she's like, no, not needed. We're all good. They're closed. They're signing. So, again, accepting the fact that if you've got a wonderful team and you trust them to represent you properly, and they have the knowledge and they have the skill set, it's just letting go. And that's been kind of where I'm learning and I'm progressing, because I think orthodontists, like you said, we're thinkers, we're kind of control freaks. We want to control it. We want to own it. And the idea is I probably wouldn't have been able to do all the things that I do if I didn't let go, and empower and trust,
Oh, you can't.
Yeah.
And again, it's, I did a 5 Minute Friday podcast episode not long ago where I talked about this. And, if you get great satisfaction out spending time with your patients, right? You sit down and we've all known those doctors who, they get a little older, particularly restorative dentists, and they're not really recommending treatment. They're kind of watching everything. But they go to the office because that's their social life, and they sit down and they talk to patients forever. And if that makes you happy, that's great. But recognize it comes at the expense of a patient who, again, if you believe that they're there to shoot the breeze with you, I've got the name of a great therapist for you. Because that's not why they came. They came to get ortho treatment. And as long as they are loved on, and this is my theory, as long as they feel loved on by the whole team, then you just come over, share the love, don't screw it up, and be on your way. And if you're seeing patients, I saw somebody post not long ago that they like to see their patients more frequently to help build the relationship so they can get more referrals and stay top of mind. And to me, that's as bad as somebody who, I wouldn't say malpractice, but somebody who treats a patient poorly, because you are intentionally wasting their time for the sake of you getting more referrals and creating a relationship. And so if you said, look, I want to see him every 8 weeks because I think I can do a better job, I want to get close to seeing it because I don't want anything to get out of control, totally cool. I get it. I understand it. But if you're saying I want to see him every 8 weeks so I'm top of mind, oof. I'm the same way with recall exams. I rarely do a 6-month recall or growth check on kids now. It's usually 9 to 12 months. And say what you will, but I don't need a mom or a dad who's busy bringing their kid in 6 months when it's crystal clear the kid ain't going to be ready for anything in 6 months. Right. Go 10 months. Now I feel good about taking another CBCT as opposed to I'm not going to take it in 6 months. Yeah. So I don't know, but I want to jump into Orthazone for you because I know that it's your passion. You were instrumental in helping people during COVID. Which still feels like a surreal time for all of us. Like the conversations you and I had personally, people that will never know about masks, about gloves, and all the efforts you were trying to pull off, buying boatloads and cartonfuls and truckloads. But let's pretend you and I are sitting in an elevator. I am not an orthodontist. You got nothing to sell me. But I say to you, oh, you have Orthazone? What is that? Please.
So Orthazone really came out of a need out of my own office. I mean, this is a little bit of a longer elevator pitch, but
we're going up to the top of the.
We're going to the top of the skyscraper here. So, I mean, the idea is that I had so many issues in my office, and again, I'm trying to empower, my team to do things. But when I see like a boatload of overstocking and then I run out of products. And I mean, it would drive me insane. And so I needed to create a solution that was really simple for my team to use. And yet I wanted to outsource part of the ordering process. And I feel like that's kind of what Orthazone does. Like Orthazone's kind of like Amazon for orthodontists. So you can shop and compare, because I always wanted to be on top of pricing and on top of different choices for my practice on suppliers. And I learned that so many suppliers share the same products and they sell it. And, black market, white, regular US made, China made, Brazilian made.
Yeah, gray market goods.
Yeah, exactly. Like all these goods. And I've got a PhD in computer science, and
You
I
do?
don't. No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, oh my
no,
gosh.
honestly, through doing Orthazone, I've got a PhD in inventory management and, stocking and restocking and profit management. I mean, all these things to help my own practice. And so Orthazone has been a love, because I want Orthazone to be a solution for helping practices save money, save time. The software that's built into it, millions of dollars have gone into solving so many so many inefficiencies in a practice via software. So my 5-second pitch: Amazon for orthodontists, with a fulfillment platform that will solve all of the fulfillment issues for you. How's that?
Yeah.
And software to kind of make it really fun.
So now let's dive a little deeper, because I know what it is, but a lot of people out there may not have heard of it. First question, which is a quick one. It would work for any size practice, right? Doesn't matter if you have 8 practices or 8 locations or 1 location.
Yeah, it would work for any practice. We're certainly doing more development to do really cool things for the bigger practices.
So talk about your dashboard, because to me, that is one of the coolest parts of what Orthazone is your dashboard. Because I used to do my own ordering as a GP for a number of years, and keeping track of things, knowing what I ordered, knowing where to order from, what I paid for it. Talk about the dashboard, if you don't mind.
So I'm, again, that comes down to my control freakness. I wanted to know what I was spending on what product. And when I went to my bookkeeper or my, accountant, and I said, what am I spending on brackets? What am I spending on products? And they had no idea. Like they had no idea. They said, well, who is the supplier? Who is, the person that you're ordering from? It became really challenging. So I wanted one platform where I can really tell what I was spending, what my overhead was on that product, because I could tell the percentage of spend based on how much money was coming into the practice. And then having a simple way of reordering based on that. So for example, I consult some offices and they say, well, I'm spending so much on this product. And I look at it on the dashboard and they're spending 1% overhead on it. And I'm like, let's just kind of worry about like what you're spending 30% on, because if we can save a little bit of money there, that will make much more sense. So using a dashboard to really understand and have that data to provide that information, I don't know of any other platform that allows for that.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's a great way of keeping track of where you're saving money, where you're spending money. Does it make reordering like a one button click sort of thing?
Yeah, so you can reorder easily through the inventory software. What I love about the inventory software is you can see where you bought it, how much you spent, which supplier you bought it from, because we have over 200 suppliers. But what I love is actually the calendar, because my lead assistant goes in and she says, okay, we need this product 5 times a year. We need this product 2 times a year. And she creates a stock on it. So you can actually use the calendar as a reminder of what you need to purchase. And then you can simply click on that product, adjust the inventory, and boom, just order. I mean, it takes her like a minute to do ordering every, 2 months or so. Yeah.
Well, I've seen a whole bunch of folks out there that I've talked to about ordering, right? It's always been one of those things. And the joke about it is people spend so much time trying to save a buck here and there, when at the end of the day, their entire supply cost is 2.5% of their office overhead, let's say, or 3% or 4%, right? They're overstaffed by 3 team members. They don't want to bring in technology to reduce their costs and increase their efficiency. And they're literally spending, if they have 100% of the time they're spending on managing the clinical operations of their practice. They're spending 35 or 40% of it on supplies and where they order and what they're spending. When if they did the worst job possible on it versus the best job possible, it might be a 1% swing one way or the other, right? And I know where you're going to go with that. And so I'm just going to follow up and saying people can go to buying groups, right? That's one way people go. And certainly, something is announced. Here's what you can save. We have a new arrangement with this person, and then you go order it from them. There's no dashboard, right? Or they can go independent, where their assistant goes searching through the internet, finding deals, which I would never recommend. I've been there, never would do that again. What you're offering, is it more expensive to use your approach, or is it actually a savings?
That's a great question. And I just can't. When anyone looks at my numbers for my own practice, they're like, holy God, how did you do that? And a lot of it comes from the efficiencies. I don't get I don't get the Maryann Kriger pricing for Orthazone. I get VIP pricing. So if you're a VIP member, you get the same pricing as I do. And the idea behind it, and I know you mentioned it's only 1% and inventory is fine. We do great. But the reality is, if a team member spends 4 hours a week ordering, they could be working on new patients on social media or doing posts to get you new patients.
Agreed. And we're saying the same thing. We're saying the same. I'm saying don't let them spend that amount of time on something that's that's so insignificant in the broader picture of things. One new patient very well may be more that you're going to make than what you're going to save in the 7 hours your team member is going to be looking for stuff.
Yeah. And then the team member leaves and all of a sudden you don't have all the information that they gathered, right? So here's it's not a spiral book that has, this manufacturer, we buy this and this, we buy this. It's all in one easy cloud-based solution. Also the shipping, I want to talk about that because I found that when we negotiate Orthazone's pricing, we really work with the supplier or the manufacturer to save on shipping. So we're able to tell anyone who orders from Orthazone, they may put GC, they may put Reliance, they may put, I'm just kind of thinking off, different suppliers into the shopping cart. It is one flat fee shipping of $9.99. And the supply chain and the shipping costs have become a financial venue for suppliers. If you notice, sometimes my office would buy, a cheek retractor for $10 and the shipping would be $15.
Right.
And they do that 10 times a month. And all of a sudden you've just spent $400 on shipping alone. Yeah. So that's one other thing that Orthazone does. Your shipping is only $9.99 a month, $9.99 a shipment, no matter what suppliers put in it. And so VIP members.
I want to stop there for a second. Yeah. Because you went really fast on that.
Yeah, sorry.
If I go onto the, because this is huge. This is a big deal. So if I go onto the portal, my dashboard, and my assistant orders 12 things at once, 15 things, 30 things at once from a variety of different manufacturers, does it all get put in the same box for $9.99?
Correct.
There you go.
That's huge.
That's huge. Tremendous. Right. And again, you and I have talked about this, so it's kind of like leading the witness.
Yeah.
But that's one of the most overlooked things when it comes to savings, because people will say, oh, I got this thing $10 cheaper. Yeah. And you paid $9 for the shipping on it.
And you spent 3 hours looking for it.
And you had 15 different shippers are shipping you.
Yeah.
So you end up paying an extra $150 in shipping. And we're speaking the same language. So does it work as a membership? And again, I'm asking because we haven't spoken about it in a while, and I really want to learn for myself. It's a membership fee and then a reduced price on the goods? I can't remember how it works exactly.
Yeah, so anyone can shop Orthazone. It's free, and then anything that goes into the cart, it's $9.99. If you become a VIP member, it's free shipping, I think up to 3 times a month. So that already kind of pays for your membership fees. And it's $99 a month. And the setup fee is $1,200. And Glenn, I'm happy. If anyone has specific questions or anything, please share my information. And I'm even happy to to be honest, I want people to try it. I want people to know it. If I can discount the setup fee or anything just to help practices save time and money, I'm really happy to do that. So
I know you are. and to everybody out there listening, there are business owners who are out to make a buck, right? They don't care. They're in it for the money. And then there are people like Maryann who, and I'll say it for you because you can't say it, because we've spent a lot of time talking over the years. She bleeds the desire to help her peers. You bleed that, right? You want. There are people who are passionate about their product and talk about my product is amazing and look at the savings. And she wants people's lives to be easier. That's all she wants. And again, I have no financial interest, but you and I have had conversations behind closed doors, private calls a couple of times where there's nobody listening but you and me. And you are 100% an advocate for the orthodontic peers that you represent to say, look, I'm doing this because I honestly think it will be in the best interests of you to do this, to save you money, to save you time, and to get more of your life back. And so I just wanted to throw that out there because you can't say it as honestly as I can because, again, the obvious nature of it. So if someone is interested in learning more about Orthazone, how do they find you?
So I'll give you my email, and it's
say it right now. What is it?
It's Maryann, Maryann K at Ortha.
As in Kriger.
Yeah, there you go. So Maryann, the letter K at orthazone.com, and Orthazone is orthazone.com.
Nice.
I am so happy to really help anyone. I mean, you guys can find me on Facebook and private message me too. I think, Glenn, I really appreciate you saying that. I could have chose a much easier business.
You've made that clear many times when we've talked.
It's just such a labor of love. And I want to practice to just realize how efficient they can be, how their software solutions, not even just ours, but there's so many software solutions that can make life so much easier for the orthodontist to make it more profitable. So I'm here to help. If you guys need my consulting or my advice or anything, I'll give the Orthazone number and then you guys can
don't give the number. It occurred to me.
Okay.
This is 2023. I've heard they got these newfangled things called websites.
Okay. So it's Orthazone, www.orthazone.
Oh, please. You did not whip out a www on me, did you?
www. So orthazone.com, ortha, and is with an A. Otherwise, you'll find some sort of chiropractor. So it's www.orthazone.com with an A. So Orthazone. And the phone number is 1-800-833-7132. So again, if I can help, just reach out to the Orthazone team. They have my cell phone number since I'm not allowed to give it to you guys, but I'm teasing. And if you want to find me on Facebook, I'm wholeheartedly 100% on the orthodontist side. Like if I can help in any way, that's all I want.
Right on. And operators are standing by. Maryann, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today. Love you, appreciate you. Appreciate your presence in my life. And I really do truly see and appreciate what you're doing for orthodontists and trying to help them. And just don't give up on the idea of Kriger and Kriger. I think as long as I'll let your name go first. It could be Kriger.
I was going to say, who gets to go first?
I'll let you go first. I got no problem with that. It's easy.
That's it.
So just wishing you a great day. And again, thank you so much for being here today.
I really appreciate your time. And thank you so much. I can't thank you enough.
My pleasure.